for this. Okay, so here we have this model. And we're going to go to main within the model in order to add these components that are going to make these targeted interventions possible. The first component that we're going to add is we're going to add a parameter. This is going to sound a little bit weird, but forgive me. Is eligible for intervention. That's going to be the name of it, okay? Is eligible for intervention. This is going to be a sort of rule, a decision rule we're going to specify. It's going to tell them, are they eligible or not? Okay? Now, we're going to take this, and I'm going to take this parameter, and we're going to go select it. Select that parameter, just go click on it so you see its properties, and we're going to go down to an area we've never opened before, advanced, and we're going to declare in this treasure chest of options that this is a dynamic parameter, okay? How did I do that? I selected dynamic parameter, okay? Now, when we did that, something very strange opened up before us, okay? Above this, when I clicked on that, did anyone notice what changed? Watch this. I'll click it back. Watch that. Tell me what's happening. I click dynamic, what's going on? This thing that says arguments came up. Do you see that? Now that's not talking about a quarrel. It's talking instead about the information it needs to do its job. I used this term once before, so we call them arguments for some reason. These things that it needs to do its job. So it's going to take one argument, okay? And it's going to be candidate person. It's going to be called candidate person. Candidate person. That means the person who's being considered for eligibility. And what sort of type do you think this will have? If it's called candidate person, it's going to be a what? A person. Eh? Make sense? Okay. Great. That's all. And the final thing is, it is going to, great, it's all the information it needs. It's going to be given a person, and it's going to say, is this person eligible for the intervention? Does that make sense? So maybe for one intervention, examined by one experiment, by one scenario, the eligibility will be based on their income being below, a certain threshold. Maybe another one will be based on their income and how many people, how tight their contact network is. And you consider both of those as part of it. Maybe in another case, you consider their history of past infections. But it's going to consider a person, and it's going to tell, yes, yay or nay, are they eligible or not? Are they in the intervention or not? And each experiment's going to dictate, okay, what this intervention is, okay? It's going to dictate this criteria and what to do. Okay, so this is going to be of type, not double, but of type, if it says yay or nay, if it says true or false, what sort of thing is it? It's a Boolean. That's right. Man, you folks have come a long way. That's excellent. That's excellent. I've been trying this a long way. Well, I hope you don't feel that. You've been coming along of your own energy and accord. Okay, great. So that's one piece of this puzzle. That wasn't too bad, was it? The default value is false. We'll say false. It actually is immaterial here, but the default value is false. Okay, great, terrific. The other thing we need to define, you notice it takes on a different aspect. Okay, okay. The other one we have to define is perform intervention. Perform intervention for person. Okay? That's what it's going to be called. Another parameter in main. interesting. Oh, this is interesting. Okay? And what is this going to be? This is going to be something that, on a per intervention basis, it's going to do the thing for our intervention. Maybe the thing that we're going to do for our intervention is lower their contact rate. If this person is deemed eligible, we'll lower their contact rate by a factor of 2. That could be a thing we do. Another intervention mechanism might be we make their time until diagnosis and treatment shorter. Another thing we might do is lower their number of specific connections. Another thing we might do is quarantine them. Whatever it is, okay? Okay? Now, for this parameter, this too is not a normal parameter. This is a parameter that you've never used before. Okay? And this is called, ladies and gentlemen, an action parameter. Sounds dynamic, doesn't it? Yeah. But it's called an action parameter. And that, again, is specified in this advanced area for the parameter. Okay? Action parameter. And this is going to undertake an action. It's going to perform an action. It's not going to return any value. It's not going to say true or false. It's instead going to do something. And what it's going to do is it's going to make that action happen on that person. Is that okay? Okay. Okay. Great. Great. Great, great, great. So the default action will be left blank. You notice there's no choice that it returns a value. And this will be person on whom to intervene. Okay? And what do you think that's going to be? Of what type? Is it going to be a Boolean? Is it going to be a double?
Person.
It's going to be a person, is darn right.
Could you have all this candidate person also?
You could, but this is no longer a candidate person. I could call it whatever I want. I could call it a snuffleupagus, but it's actually the important thing is that the name connotes what it means, and this is no longer a candidate. This is a person. By the time we pass it to this, it will be someone we know we want to intervene upon them because they've already passed the eligibility test. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay. This is great. This is great. Trust me. Okay. So we finished the basic mechanisms needed at a high level. We just have to undertake one or two other bits of housekeeping to undertake the specific interventions we want to undertake. Please excuse the lack of Queen's English. Okay, great. Okay. So what we're going to undertake here, we're going to want within our interventions to now be able to specify on a person-by-person basis the contact rate and the duration of infection in days. We want to specify that on a person-by-person basis, okay? So what we're going to need to do is, instead of having these in main here, we're going to actually want to be able to change them at a person-by-person level. So what we're going to do here, and you'll sometimes see this pattern, is we're going to still have them in main, but we're going to also have them at the person level so they can vary for some people, the intervened upon people at a person-by-person level. So we're going to take these two parameters and we're going to copy them into also be at the person level, okay? And you'll see there's a method to this madness. Great. So now we have parameters like this at the level of a person, which we can override. We can sort of get them to take our special values if they're intervened upon. Again, I apologize for the lapse in English. Okay. Great. So what did we do? We went to main, we copied these two parameters, duration of infection and contact rate, and we copied it into person, okay? Terrific. And now, finally, where do we depend upon contact rate and where do we depend on duration of infection? Where do I look here? Speak as if in a Greek chorus. Okay, yeah, that very good. Yeah, at least at least a single person Greek chorus. Okay, great. So instead of being main contact rate, it will go back to being our contact rate for this particular person, and instead of being just the main duration of infection, we'll go back to being the one for this particular person. Now, for most of the population, where will those be set from? From where will those be set? Well, yeah, from main. So go up to the population. After you've done that, go up to the population. And in the population, we're going to be passing a value for contact rate here. Oops, excuse me. For the population here, we're going to be passing a value of contact rate that's based on our contact rate. We're going to be passing a value for duration of infection that's based on the one given to us, given to Maine. We're just going to pass it on to the individual, pass it on to the particular person by default. And then for those people in the intervention, we're going to override it. We're going to change it. We're going to make it special for that person because they're intervened upon. They're in that special intervention group. So we have, what have I just done? May I show you again? Yes. Okay. Okay, so at the person level, we copied in contact rate and duration of infection. Okay? Okay? Why? Because we want that to vary on a person-by-person basis. Right? Step one.
Can we have deleted the one in May?
No.
No, okay.
I'll show you why. Okay? Secondly, we make this component and this component depend on the respective variables. So this component depends on contact rate in that person, not the one in Maine. This one depends on the duration of infection for that person, not the one in Maine. Why is it so important that it depends on the one for this person? Yeah, we want to be able to have it vary so we can stimulate the effects that some people are intervened upon. There's some people who have been intervened upon and some not. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Some people are different than others. Some people have smaller contact rate because they've been changed by the intervention. Does that make sense? Oh gosh. Okay. I hope it makes sense to a large fraction. Okay. In Maine, we further, I'm just rehearsing my steps, we further in population. What is it that we do in population? What's specified for the population? The parameters to use for each person, right? Remember that very first model with heterogeneity? We needed to, in the population, specify the age assumption. Remember that distribution? The sex, the income. Remember that? Well, we're doing the same thing here. For each person population, we specify the income. And for each person, we specify the contact rate to assume duration of infection days and this. And it was asked earlier in a good way, can we eliminate these from the main population? No, because this is where we're using them. This is kind of the default value we're setting. But there's going to be a special value imposed for those subject to intervention. So are people comfortable with this? Speak as if in a Greek chorus. Good, even if it's a message. Okay, so basically Maine has some default parameters it's passing on, but to the person, and each person is going to have their own. Okay? Yeah.
For some reason, it doesn't allow me to copy recovery time. It calls it recovery time one.
Yeah.
Is that okay for contact rate?
Okay, maybe there's already one called recovery time there.
Or you mix it.
There's already one called that. So you must have not deleted it earlier. Yeah. Okay. Other questions? Other people need help here. Dylan's ready to help back there. Who needs help? Help needed? Okay. Other people need help? Just here, already dealt with by Annie. Others? Other people need help? Okay. So we're almost done. We're almost done with this. Okay? Great. So the final thing we need to do is to allow for overriding. Is the food here, Mark? Great, thanks. Okay, the final thing we want to do is to allow for overriding. So watch this. You ready? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert an event that's going to perform intervention. And this event, perform intervention, this event goes off at time 0. This is in main. This is in main. It's going to be perform intervention. It goes off at time 0. Okay? And what do you think this intervention is going to do? Given the pieces we've put into place, this mechanism for testing if someone is eligible on the one hand, this mechanism performing the intervention on those who are eligible, what do you think this perform intervention is going to do? Okay, it's going to go through each person in the population and do what? And first, test if they're eligible, and if so, perform the intervention. Does that make sense? Okay, so yeah, you know what, I'm getting in trouble. Okay, so we can do this in a way that's beautiful and elegant, or we can do it in a way that's traditional. Which do you want to do? Okay, darn right. Darn right we're going to do it that way. Okay. Okay, we're going to do it this way, and Dylan will be having a field day. So this is the double header. This is just great. Trust me. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. Ready? In this intervention, it goes off at one time only, time 0, and we're going to do population dot for each, okay? And then we're going to do person for a given person. Dylan, do you want to draw your arrow on the board again? Okay, for a given person, okay, we're going to say, right, for a given person, we are going to test, are they eligible for the intervention? If they are eligible, we are going to perform the intervention on them, otherwise not. Okay? Okay. Now the question is in Java 8, Dylan, am I going to be able to do this, or do I need to wrap it in probably I need to wrap it in, yeah. Okay. Yeah, okay, okay. So if person dot, if is eligible for intervention, is eligible, let's go do this, is eligible for intervention, eligible for intervention, great, of that person. If that person is eligible for the intervention, what do we want to do for them? Perform the intervention upon them. Okay? Perform, and what do we call it? We called perform intervention for person. Okay? Okay, perform intervention for person. And on who do we perform it? On that person, right? That's all. Okay, that's it. That is it. Dylan, is that correct? Yeah. What's that? Yeah, I'll put it on the big screen as soon as I, yes. It is correct. Okay, sorry folks. So what I'm doing here is I'm going through each person in the population, and I'm saying, okay, for this person called person, are they eligible? And I determine that by calling this is eligible for intervention on them. I say, are they eligible? It's just like calling sign, was there? Calling sign on them. If so, perform the intervention on them. Otherwise, don't worry about it.
I'm going to head off one really big source of confusion. So if you guys can all look up here for a second. Before the if, this is a curly brace, not a regular brace. Same thing with this guy over here. It is a curly one. Because if you get it into just the round braces, it's going to complain at you. Just let everybody know.
Yeah. Basically, this is some logic that we're going to use to handle this case. Dylan and I both suspect we could eliminate these if we had to, but lunch is here. And I'm hungry. Okay. So basically, we're going through each person in the population. We're seeing they're eligible. Do you want to see how this would be done in a traditional way? After lunch, fair enough. A disgusting way. I wouldn't call it quite disgusting. It's not abhorrent. I don't mean lunch. I mean the traditional way of doing this is not abhorrent. It's not disgusting. It's for each 4-person population.
We might be thinking slightly different things here.
Yeah. Okay. No, it's not the anti. Oh, no, we don't want to go there. Okay, folks, that's it. That's the mechanism. That will do a thing of beauty for us. And now, you want to see the beauty it will do for you?
Yes.
Okay. Oh man, you folks are game. Okay, I'm rooting for you. Here we go. So now, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to, this is going to be great. This is going to be great. Watch this. Watch this. Okay? Okay, watch this. I'm going to do new experiment, and I'm going to say lower contact rate among low SES. Okay? Or halve contact rate among low SES. Halve contact rate among low SES. Okay, you ready for this? Hold on to your socks. Okay, ready? I'm gonna do halving the contact rate among the low SES people. Okay, so how am I gonna do this? How am I gonna do it? Well, look at that. It's a thing of beauty. Now, as part of the parameters for the experiment, I can tell it what's the rule for determining eligibility for the intervention? Okay? Okay? Okay, now watch this. I can refer in this rule to the name candidate person. Why can I refer to that? Candidate person. I'm going to ask, how would I tell if I wanted to intervene on low SES, how would I tell if they're eligible? Sorry, I don't want to scare you. It's amazing how composed Dylan is being right now, given how exciting this is. So how would I tell if they're low SES? If their income is less, say, than 400, okay? Okay, $400 a month or something, yeah? Okay, that's going to be the rule for if they're eligible or not. And now perform intervention. If they are eligible, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Well, it's suggested by the name. Speak as if a Greek chorus. Have the contact rate, okay? So here, this is going to be called person on whom to intervene. Where did these names come from? From what strange source did they originate? Yeah, those are in the dynamic parameters. Remember we defined this? Those are the names we're using. We're going to say person on whom to intervene. And what are we going to do? What are we going to do with this person? Okay, we have this person. We know we're going to intervene on them, and we want to have their contact rate. How are we going to do that? Speak. Okay, yeah. Person.contact rate. Now, there's a super elegant way to do this in Java, but I'm going to spare you that because you don't, or do you? Well, I'm tempted to do it, but it will be obscure to you. So I'm just going to say that thing equals that thing times 0.5. What do you think? Is that okay with you? So the person on whom to intervene's contact rate equals its original value times 0.5. Times 0.5. I'll put it up on the big screen. There we are. Okay? That's the intervention. On whom is it performed? Yes, it's on this person. And for this experiment, on which subgroup of the population? Low SES people. As judged by what rule? As judged by which rule? That rule, right? So for these people, we are doing this thing. We are taking their contact rate and we're setting it to its original value times 0.5. Now, personally, I happen to think that the Java way of doing it actually adds value. So if you're okay with it, I will tell you that in Java you can write this like that, times equals, meaning that take its value and multiply it by 0.5. And you put the star next to the equal sign. And that's it. This equals this thing times 0.5. Boom, dead, done. Okay? That didn't sound good, but it's done. Sadyala.
If we wanted to affect two different parameters, we could use double ampersand like we did before.
Oh, you want to, suppose we want to affect their duration of infection?
Yes, please.
Watch this. Dot duration of infection in days times equals 0.5. Boom, done. Easy peasy. Okay?
Yes, thank you.
Now the power should come home. Okay? So should the lunch, which we're about to break for. But the point is, each intervention, for each separate intervention, you can dictate your own rule for eligibility and your own rule for what happens when they're eligible. You can use this to specify interventions in a very, very flexible way. Does that make sense? So you could have different rules for who's eligible and different rules for given eligibility, how they're affected. And in general, I won't go into it, but you can divide them up into different intervention groups and have intervention group A and B and C and generalize it like that. Okay, do you want to run this thing? Do you want to run it? Who wants this up on the screen longer? I can put it up here on the big screen. Boom. That's the thing. Oh, I have to say, that is a thing of beauty if you know what it means. I mean, because it really cuts out cruft. It means you don't have to repeat this whole thing and kind of say, oh, is it the same one as that one on the left, one on the right? You just look at that, you say, oh, it's being halved. By the way, you could also, another way to write this that makes it even clearer it's being halved would be to do divide equals that. Meaning this thing equals itself divided by 2. But I'll write it as the first one just to avoid confusing people. Okay, can we run this? Does anyone want this up there longer? Oh boy, is it a thing of beauty. Just be sure that the thing you referred to here is the same name for is eligible for intervention. Make sure that's the same name, ladies and gentlemen, as was used in defining what? In defining here, is eligible for intervention. This is where we defined it. Remember that? Remember that? And similarly, ladies and gentlemen, similarly, ladies and gentlemen, if for this other one, where was it? Here it is. Have contact rate among low SES. we use this one person on whom to intervene. Where did that get defined? Well, it's here, person on whom to intervene, when we first created that action parameter. Okay, so that's how we specify it. It's a thing of beauty. Can we run it? Okay, and then I will encourage you to go partake of the repast. Not necessarily the software, but okay, great. Great. So let's go see, and here we have the contact rate specifically amongst the low SES people, and it brought down their burden of infection to 0.8. Okay, let's go run that again, and you will see once again it sort of maxes out right about 0.8. You'll notice the high SES individuals have also been somewhat affected. It's not quite as clear, but if we go looked at have duration of infection, have contact rate, I called it lower contact rate across the entire population, and we were to go look at that, boom. This is one involving the whole population that we encoded earlier. Here we had a similar sort of level among the low SES, but we actually helped the high SES further. It turns out that compared to the baseline, so if you were to run the baseline here, for the baseline, there actually is a higher SES rate that's been lowered even though we only intervene upon the it turns out the burden of infection in the high SES population is actually lowered by only intervening upon the low SES population. So even though we confine our intervention only to the low SES population, we have had a ripple through effect on the high SES population as well. Okay, so that's all. I've shown here a very flexible general mechanism for implementing targeted interventions, which allow us to focus on a certain subgroup and have a sort of custom action for that subgroup. Okay? Yes, Dale.
I have two questions.
Yeah.
Is eligible for intervention you get past that a fully true or false? But is it possible that we just get past that person if they meet the criteria for true or false and use that as the argument for our intervention?
Yeah, but you'd have to deal with the awkward case. Okay, what do you pass if they're not eligible? You know, like it's an interesting idea, and I like that idea. But you know, if they're not eligible, what do we pass back to that would be the subject to intervention? You'd have to sort of broker that case. There are ways of doing that, though.
And we're dependent on the fact that we have an event inside the actual main to actually fire.
Right.
So if, say, you had income change over time,
Right.
let's say someone that may move into a higher,
Right.
would we have to then have some, is there a way to do it dynamically, or would we just have to get the event and fire it?
Probably you'd have the event fire at regular, but there are ways you could do it otherwise. But that would be the easiest way to have the event fire at certain times or something like that. Okay, so what we've just seen is how to perform interventions within the model, either on the whole population or on subsets of the population by the use of parameters. For the whole population, it was a little bit easier. We just specified alternative parameter values. For subsets of the population, ladies and gentlemen, we found that a bit more mechanism was needed, but we could create a very, very flexible scheme which allows us to specify in a very crisp way the candidates, the criteria for the intervention and what to undertake for the intervention. And then intervention after intervention after intervention can define different interventions, and we don't have to modify our model at all. That's the beautiful thing. We don't actually have to go in there and change our model to sort of make this intervention happen. For the most part, we can just specify our interventions as part of experiments. So we have this intervention, this experiment for intervention A, this experiment for intervention B, and we can compare the two. Okay? Even though they're targeting different subsets of the population, even though there's logic involved, we can set that logic in the experiment, not have to modify the whole model just to accommodate this new intervention, targeted intervention criteria. Okay. So let's break for lunch now, and this afternoon we'll be going on to something rather different. Okay?